You clicked for boring history for sleep. You saw a strange title, The Forgotten Empire That Vanished Overnight. You wonder if this is about you. You wonder if your own life sits on ground built by people with no graves and no names. One sunrise their walls stood strong. One sunset their streets went cold. Traders passed empty gates. No smoke, no sound, no answer. You hear stories about famous rulers. You never hear about this place. No textbooks, no monuments, no proud flags, only a missing line in old maps and a long whisper in private letters. You stay here. Your eyes stay open. You wait for a reason why an empire can stand one day and fade the next. You sit in a quiet room. The night feels slow. You want a soft story. You want history without stress. You came for the forgotten empire that vanished overnight. So we start with a name no one speaks today. The Empire of Lear. The name sits inside one letter from a merchant in the year 1032. Scholars saw the word. They looked for more. They found nothing. No king lists, no battle logs, no tax counts. Only one letter from a trader who passed through a busy port. He wrote about high walls, wide streets, grand markets, and a strange rule. No loud voices after sundown. Soldiers walked the streets. The trader said the soldiers looked tired. The letter said the people looked worried. He did not explain why. He moved on with his goods. He brought spices, cloth, and metal. He left with coins marked with a bird. The bird had wide wings and a sharp neck. That coin sat in one museum drawer for a long time. No one connected it to any empire, not until a young historian saw the odd bird and matched it with the letter. The historian was named Emma Gray. She worked in a small office with dust and slow light. She read old letters. She sorted old coins. She liked quiet work. When she saw the bird coin and the trader's letter side by side, she knew she found a lost story. She wanted proof. She searched for other letters from the same time. She found 2 short notes from sailors. Both spoke about a port city with high walls near a cold coast. One sailor wrote that the guards asked him to lower his voice at night. He wrote about torches hung on long iron poles. He said the smell of salt and smoke filled the port. The second sailor wrote about dark clouds over the palace roof. He had no interest in politics or kings. He only cared about his cargo. Still, his note told scholars one thing. The place was real. Emma Gray now needed land proof. She checked old maps. She found one map from a monk who traveled by sea. The map was small, faded, and hard to read. Near one coast sat a tiny shape, a square with short walls. The monk wrote one simple word under the shape, Lear. That was the land she needed. This was not a legend. This was not a story told to children. This place had ships. It had coins. It had a port. It had people with rules and order. So why did no one speak the name today? Emma raised money for a search trip. She sailed with a small team to the cold coast. The trip took long days. The ocean pushed the ship like a stubborn animal. When the team reached land, they saw tall cliffs and long beaches. The waves hit hard. The wind cut through coats. Emma and her team moved inland by foot. Local people showed old trails. Some had heard stories from grandparents about walls buried in the earth. Some spoke about strange stones near the woods. The team walked for 2 days until the first sign. A piece of shaped stone with straight sides. A human hand had made it long ago. More stones followed, some broken, some half hidden by soil and moss. Then the team found a gate. Not a full gate. Only 2 thick pillars of dark stone with a gap between them. The gap pointed toward the sea. Emma stood in silence. She knew this marked the outer wall of a town. If this was Lear, then the empire of Lear stood near this coast. The team dug near the pillars. They found pottery shards, small bones, coins with the bird, and short metal pins used for armor. The earth held proof. This was the forgotten place. The strange part came next. The stones showed no scorch marks, no broken weapons, no human remains in rushed graves, no sign of battle, no sign of sickness. The people did not fall in war. They did not fall to disease. The town looked as if the people walked away. Houses stood empty. Markets fell silent. Soldiers dropped gear and left. Emma sat near a broken jug and wondered why old letters spoke about harsh rules at night. The trader wrote that he heard no dogs or horses after dark. He tried to ask why. A guard told him to sleep. The silence felt forced. One sailor wrote that he saw a strange building near the palace. He called it the Hall of Voices. He heard slow drums inside at sunrise. The sailor was not brave. He avoided trouble. He gave no detail. Emma and her team searched for the Hall of Voices. They found a large square foundation near the palace remains. The front held 2 giant stone heads. Both heads faced the sea. Months of digging exposed a floor with long cracks. At the center sat a circle of stone. Burn marks surrounded the circle. Emma thought of the sailors' drums. She felt a chill, though the sun sat high. She took notes and asked the team to check nearby rooms. They found broken drums, small horns, and heavy masks carved from wood. The masks had holes for eyes. The mouths were wide and strange. Local stories helped a little. Old fishermen spoke about a silent curse. They said people feared voices in the night. They feared storms. They feared some law older than kings. No one knew where the stories started. No one linked them to Lear until Emma showed the bird coin. The fishermen nodded. They knew that bird from old songs. Songs without words, only long hums. The songs were old enough to lose meaning, but the bird shape lived on. Emma kept digging. One night while the team slept, she walked to the sea. She looked at the dark water. She thought about the people of Lear. Why leave homes? Why leave strong walls? Why leave gold? She thought about storms from the north. She thought about earth shaking. Yet the ground showed no cracks. The walls stood strong. So the people walked away because of fear. But fear of what? Emma found one room under the Hall of Voices, a hidden room. Inside the room sat clay tablets marked with symbols. A clay symbol showed the bird again. A sharp neck, wide wings, a circle around its head. That circle symbol was new. Emma asked an expert to study the tablets. The expert said the symbols told a simple rule. Silence at night, every night. No noise after sundown. The people believed sound called something bad from the sea, so they kept quiet. They walked with soft feet. They locked doors. They prayed in silence. The Hall of Voices held drums for sunrise only. Not for night. The expert asked Emma a strange question. Did the tablets show a date? One tablet held small dots. The expert said the dots might show a count of years. Near the end of the dots sat a symbol of a door, a closed door, then a broken door, then nothing. Emma guessed that the people reached the end of some time mark. They might have waited for a sign. When the sign came, they ran. The team also found a long tunnel near the palace. The tunnel led toward the sea. It dropped under the cliffs. Salt air filled the end. The tunnel had no carvings or lights. It was dark. Emma thought the people used the tunnel to escape. They left in boats under the cover of night. They sailed to another land. They left no record. They left no smoke. They left no sound. Historians ask why no trace of them in other lands. Some said the people changed names. Some said they spoke in secret. Some said they lived quiet lives in new towns. Emma did not speak bold theories. She had facts. The walls, the coins, the bird, the tablets, the tunnel, all pointed to a choice to leave. The empire of Lear did not fall in war. It did not fall from hunger. It faded from fear. A silent law shaped each night. When the sign came, the people walked away without screams or fire. Emma knew her work was not done. She planned to search the tunnel at low tide. She wanted to see if boats once tied there. She wanted to find any mark on the stone. Before we follow her into, you can rest for a short moment. The night in your room sits calm. Your breath slows. You wait for the next part of the story. Emma waited for low tide. The sun rose slow. The sea pulled back from the cliffs. Wet stones shined. Her team placed ropes along the tunnel floor. The air felt cold and damp. Emma lit lamps. Each step sent echoes through the narrow passage. The walls showed tool marks, smooth cuts, careful work. The people of Lear shaped this tunnel for planned use, not rushed use. Far inside, the tunnel opened to a wide chamber. The chamber sat under the cliff. A pool of seawater filled part of the floor. Wooden beams from old docks rested on the rocks. Emma touched one beam and felt how soft it was. Time had worn the wood thin, but the shape told a story. This chamber once held small boats. The people lined boats here and waited for night. When the tide reached the chamber, the boats floated up and slipped out through a narrow gap in the cliff. Emma checked the gap. Waves hit outside. She saw open sea beyond the rock. She thought about silent departures. No drums, no calls, only quiet hands pushing boats forward. The empire did not die. It left. She found more marks on the chamber wall. Simple carvings. A bird with wings folded. A row of dots under the bird. Then a symbol of a moon. Then a small circle. The experts said the moon and circle marked a warning. Silence at night or face danger. The carving near the dock told the people to leave when the last moon symbol passed. Emma felt slow fear, not wild fear, a soft fear that settled in the chest. Why did these people trust the warning? Why leave strong stone walls and tall towers because of silence? The expert found one more clue on the clay tablets. A short phrase showed a date. The date matched a coastal storm in other records. That storm hit many ports. It threw ships onto land. It cracked docks. It sank boats with goods. But the same storm did not crush Lear. The empire stood far from the main trade routes. It had high cliffs. It had strong walls. A storm by itself did not wipe out the town, yet the storm lined up with a date on the tablets, so the people might have seen the storm as a sign. If they held fear for many years, the storm might have confirmed their belief. They might have thought the sea sent a warning, so they left as one. Emma wanted more proof. She explored the palace ruins next. The palace once held a wide front court. Now weeds covered broken stones. Tall columns reached up to the sky. Birds perched on top. Inside the palace hall, the team found pieces of armor, bronze plates, leather straps, rusted swords with bird symbols on the pommel. The soldiers of Lear wore strength, yet they walked away. In one corner of the palace, Emma found a sealed door. Stone blocks held the frame tight. The door had no handle, only a small hole near the base. The team worked slow. They brushed dirt from the seams. They moved stones one by one. The air behind the door felt stale. A thin layer of dust floated out. They lit lamps and looked inside. The hidden room held scrolls. Rows of scrolls. Most scrolls had turned to dust. A few still held shape. Emma lifted the first scroll with careful hands. The scroll told a story of kings, names lost to time. The king of Lear ruled for 30 years. He traded with many ports. He built walls. He raised the Hall of Voices. The scroll praised his rule. Then the story changed. The scroll told about a night with strange sound. Fishermen heard cries from the bay. They saw lights over the water. The next day, they found dead fish on the sand. The king called priests. The priests said the people must stay silent at night. They said sound brought danger. The king accepted the rule. From that day, no music or loud talk at night. The Hall of Voices held drums for sunrise only, not for evening. A second scroll told about travelers who broke the rule. They laughed at night. They ignored guards. The next morning, they were gone. Their beds were empty. Their horses stood alone in the stable. The scroll did not say who took them. The scroll only said no one heard them leave. After that, no one broke the rule. Emma read the scroll in silence. The team listened. The story felt strange, but the scroll was old. It backed the rule of silence written on the clay tablets. It matched the tone in the trader's letter. It matched the fear in local stories. For the people of Lear, silence was law. Emma wanted to check the bay again. She walked alone for a moment. She stood on the beach and looked at the water. The wind touched her face. The waves rolled slow. She thought about the fishermen of Lear who heard cries from the bay. She thought about the storm that came years later. She thought about the last moon symbol on the carving. She thought about the day the people left the empire. The palace also held a small room with stone benches. This room faced east. A tall, narrow window let in the morning sun. Emma guessed this was a prayer room. She found one statue of the bird. The statue had no eyes. The face looked sharp and plain. The wings wrapped around a small child. The child figure held its mouth shut. Emma took notes. The statue hinted at a shared fear. The people taught silence from birth. In the back of the palace, the team found a workshop. Clay tools lay on tables. Broken bowls filled corners. One old cup still sat upright. No one knocked it over. The workshop looked frozen. A woman might have shaped cups in this room. She put down her tools one evening and never came back. That thought gave Emma a heavy heart. She felt close to the people who lived here. They paid for goods. They raised children. They shared meals. Then they walked into the night. Emma tried to find proof of sickness or poison. She found none. No mass graves. No burned houses. No signs of looting. The people took many supplies with them. Empty boxes. Empty jars. Thin scrape marks in storerooms. They left with calm steps. The expert studied the tablets again. He said one phrase spoke about a promise. The promise, said silence, kept the sea away. But if silence failed, then the sea would take the town. The storm might have been proof to them. The storm might have felt like the promise was broken. So the people left before danger struck. The promise shaped their choice. Emma shared her findings with other scholars. Some agreed. Some laughed. Some said she found a simple port town, not an empire. But the walls told a different story. The palace told a different story. The scrolls spoke about kings. The docks spoke about ships. The coins spoke about trade. The empire of Lear was small, but it held power along the coast. It ruled by silence. It lived by fear of sound. One night, Emma sat near the Hall of Voices. The moon hung above the ruins. The wind passed through broken pillars. She heard small whistles from the cracks. She thought about the drums in the hall at sunrise. She thought about the soldiers who watched the streets. She thought about the rule that made the people whisper after sundown. Then she saw something across the square. A metal bell lay on the ground. A simple bell with a handle. Bells were used in many towns to warn of danger. But in Lear, bells stayed silent. Why did one bell sit in the square? Emma picked it up. The handle felt smooth. She moved it side to side. No sound. The bell had no clapper. The people removed the noise from it. They feared the bell. They feared its call. Emma returned to camp and wrote notes. She knew more work waited. She would follow the tunnel in the morning. She wanted to check the cliff gap. She wanted to draw a map for the whole port. She wanted to count rooms in the palace. She wanted to read more scrolls from the sealed room. The empire spoke through broken walls and strange rules. She listened. Morning light touched the cliffs. The tide pulled back again. Emma and her team entered the tunnel with new ropes and stronger lamps. They moved past the dock chamber. They reached the narrow gap where the sea met stone. The gap looked small from outside, but inside it opened wider. Boats once passed through with care. Marks on the rock showed where wood scraped the wall. Emma ran her hand over the stone and felt smooth grooves. Years of boats slid through this path. Emma asked 2 divers to search the water outside the gap. They put on suits and lowered themselves into the waves. The divers moved slow. They checked the seabed. They looked for anchors, wood, rope, or metal. After some time, they returned with news. They found broken pieces of wood and rusted hooks. They found a round stone weight used for nets. The stone weight sat near a pile of small bones from fish and birds. The divers said the objects were old. The water had scraped them for many years. It meant the people left by boat. They took supplies. They took nets. They planned to fish on the voyage. Emma marked the gap on her map. She drew the dock chamber and the long tunnel. She also marked the palace remains and the Hall of Voices. Next, she turned to the town centre. The streets held rows of small houses built with stone and wood. Some houses still had door frames. Some had pieces of roof beams. Inside these houses, the team found cups, broken chairs, cloth fragments, and tools. Everything looked neat. No smashed doors. No looted rooms. The people left in order. They locked their homes. They left the keys on the tables. Emma saw 2 brass keys next to a clay bowl in one house. The keys made her pause. Why leave keys? The owners did not expect to return soon. They walked away without fear of thieves. No one left to steal anything. In the old market square, Emma found a fallen arch. The arch had carvings of birds. One bird stood above a small symbol of a boat. Another bird stood above a small symbol of grain. The market once sold food and fish. The square now held only wind and weeds. Shops had wooden signs on the ground. Some letters stayed clear. One sign said salted fish. Another said stone tools. The people of Lear traded daily goods. They lived common lives. They laughed in daytime. They worked hard. They followed rules at night. Emma looked for graves. She found none. This city did not bury its dead here. Some coastal towns burned bodies. Some sent ashes into the sea. Emma saw no fire pits or ash markers. Perhaps Lear had a graveyard farther inland. Or they took ashes or remains with them when they left. The lack of graves made the place feel even more empty. A small school stood near the market. Stone benches lined a wall. Flat boards sat on wooden stands. On one board, a faint drawing of a bird could still be seen. Children learned the rules of silence here. They learned trade. They learned how to work with nets and boats. Emma held a small slate from the school. The edges were smooth from use. She placed it back with care. The expert studied the tablets again. He traced the symbols on a piece of paper. He said one line spoke about a second silence. The first silence came every night. The second silence came when the sea sent a sign. What was the sign? The storm matched the date on the tablets, so the storm might be the second silence. It might be the warning to leave. Emma and her team also checked the main gate. 2 tall pillars once held a strong wooden door. The door had fallen long ago. Pieces of wood lay under dirt and grass. Metal studs showed where iron nails once lined the door. Outside this gate, a wide road led toward inland fields. Emma followed the road until she reached a line of broken walls. These walls formed storage rooms. Inside the rooms, she found jars cracked in half. Inside some jars were grains turned into dust. Other jars held fish bones. The people packed food before leaving. They took what they needed. They left scraps behind. Near the storage rooms, Emma found a stable. The stable held wooden troughs and rusted horseshoes. No bones, no harnesses. The horses walked away with the people. They did not lead horses by rope. They rode them. That told Emma the people moved fast and far. The next part of the site sat near the cliffs. There Emma found a watchtower. The tower leaned to one side. Time pulled it down. She climbed slowly with the team. From the top of the tower, the view spread across the sea and land. Emma saw the palace ruins, the market square, the hall of voices, and the school. She saw the tunnel entrance. The city was small but strong. From this tower, guards watched ships. They enforced silence at night. On the top floor, the team found a metal horn. The horn was plugged with wax. It could not make sound. The people sealed it. They feared the horn's call. The wax preserved the silence. Emma took notes. Every clue pointed to fear of noise. Every object held signs of a quiet life. Emma returned to the palace-sealed room. She read more scroll fragments. One fragment spoke about a birth in the king's family. The birth happened after the first silence law. The scroll said the child made no sound at night. The parents passed this rule to all families. The scroll praised the child for sleeping through storms. It did not praise the child for speech. The scroll said quiet children kept the town safe. The culture shaped itself around silence. Emma wanted to know where the people of Lear went. The scrolls did not say. The letter from sailors gave no hint. The trader did not speak about foreign lands. Emma searched records from other ports. She checked letters from the same year. She found a short note from a port across the sea. The note said 3 boats arrived one morning. The boats held tired people who spoke a strange tongue. They paid with coins marked with a bird. The note said the people left after a few days. They said they moved on to another port. No more notes said where they went. Emma mapped that port on her wall. She drew a line from Lear across the sea. The line passed a chain of islands. One island had old ruins. Scholars never linked the ruins to any known culture. Emma wondered if survivors from Lear lived there. She thought about a next trip. She thought about searching those ruins. She wanted to find the final end of the trail. The expert checked the scrolls once more. He found a name for the bird. The scroll called the bird seer. The seer bird stood for silence. The people printed it on coins. They carved it on walls. They wore it on belts. They trusted it as a guard. The experts said the bird statue with the child showed seer protecting silence. Emma asked an old fisherman about local legends. He said his grandfather told stories about a silent town across the sea. The grandfather said the town left no graves. He said the sea called them. He said only quiet hearts survived. The fisherman smiled. He said these were old tales. Emma nodded. But tales often held truth. At night, Emma walked through the ruins. The moon shined bright. The walls cast long shadows. She stood in the hall of voices and stared at the broken drums. She thought about sunrise chants. She pictured the town waking with slow sounds. She pictured the streets full of movement. Then night fell. All voices gone. All footsteps soft. It felt strange. The team packed equipment. They prepared to study more parts of the town. Emma knew each new clue added weight to the mystery. The empire was small but rich. It traded with many ports. It had order and law. Then it vanished. The story did not end here. Emma planned to check the islands next. Emma sailed with her team toward the islands marked on her map. The boat moved slow across grey water. Seabirds followed in silence. The sky hung low. The crew spoke soft. Even though no rule forced silence here, the story of Lear stayed in their minds. Some felt odd speaking at night. They whispered. They looked at the waves with uneasy eyes. After 2 days, the boat reached the first island. It held cliffs and sharp rocks. No trees, no houses, no signs of life. Emma walked the shore. She found broken pottery mixed with shells. The shapes matched pieces from Lear. So people from Lear passed this island. They stopped here. They left scraps. They might have fixed boats or cooked meals. Then they moved on. The second island rose from the sea like a long stone spine. A small beach offered a safe landing. Emma and her team built a camp near the rocks. The island held old ruins. Low stone walls formed small rooms. Someone lived here long ago. Emma looked for carvings. She found none. The rooms seemed plain. The roofs had fallen. The floors showed no paint. The ruins looked older than Leah. The people from Leah might have seen these ruins when they landed. They might have slept here for one night. Emma's team dug near the walls and found one coin with the seer bird. That coin linked the island to Leah. The island acted as a stepping stone across the sea. The third island was larger. It held tall grass, small trees, and a cliff with a cave. The cave entrance sat near the waterline. Emma walked inside with lamps. The cave floor sloped up and led to a wide room. The walls held marks from metal tools. Inside the cave, the team found storage jars, pieces of rope, and net weights. The jars matched those in Leah. Someone stored goods here. Someone used the cave as shelter. Emma found clay bowls with cooked grains stuck inside. That told her the people stayed here more than one night. They cooked, they rested, they planned their next move. In one corner of the cave, Emma found a carved stone. The carving showed the seer bird with wings open. Under the bird sat 4 small dots. The expert thought the dots marked groups of people. 4 groups lived in Leah. They left in 4 waves. They stopped on this island before moving again. Emma felt close to them. She touched the carving and thought about their journey. They walked from their homes to the dock chamber. They pushed boats through the cliff gap. They sailed at night in silence. They stopped on these islands. They moved again when the sea allowed. The next morning, Emma climbed the cliff above the cave. The cliff gave a wide view. The sea spread to the horizon. Far away sat another island, small and round. Emma pointed. The captain said they could reach it by sunset. The team packed supplies and set sail again. The water stayed calm. The sky turned light blue. The air tasted of salt. The 4th island was strange. It held no trees, only short grass and flat stones. In the center stood a circle of tall rocks. Each rock pointed upward. Each rock carried a carved mark of the seer bird. Emma stepped between the stones. The air felt still. The wind slowed. She saw small piles of old ashes near each rock. Someone burned offerings here. Someone prayed. Emma thought of sunrise ceremonies in the Hall of Voices. She thought of drums. She thought of silence at night. The circle of stones told her the people of Leah held deep belief. They carried that belief even when they left their home. Emma found no bodies or bones on the island, only stone markers and ash. The people might have burned remains of the sick or old here, or they burned goods. The meaning stayed unclear. Still, the seer bird pointed the way. The 5th island sat farther than the rest. It took another full day to reach it. When the boat touched shore, Emma saw ruins on a hill. A wall surrounded the hilltop. Stone paths led upward. The ruins looked larger than any on the other islands. Emma walked up with her team. The wall held carvings of boats. The boats looked like the ones in Leah. Inside the wall, stone houses lined narrow streets. The houses looked newer than the ruins on the 2nd island. Someone built these houses after leaving Leah. They settled here. They lived here. Emma entered the largest house. The house held a central room with a stone bed and a small table. On the table lay a clay tablet. Emma lifted it and brushed dust away. The tablet showed a short message. We stand in silence. We wait for safe night. We honor seer. We move again when the sign calls. The tablet did not say how long they lived here. It did not say if they left or stayed. The team found more tablets in a second house. One tablet said, "The storm passed." The waves spoke soft. We heard no cries. We saw calm water. We will leave when the moon falls. Emma studied the writing. The people watched the sea. They read signs in the waves. When the sea seemed calm, they planned to move again. They did not settle here forever. This was a rest stop. Emma searched the hilltop for clues of their final home. She found a broken boat on the beach. The wood had rotted, but the frame held shape. The boat was large enough to cross wide waters. The rotted sail lay under sand. Emma pictured the people pushing this boat into the sea. They loaded supplies. They loaded children. They left this island. The trail did not end here. By sunset, Emma sat on the shore and wrote notes. The empire walked across the sea, one island at a time. They left signs for those who knew the sea a bird. They feared sound. They trusted silence. They moved when storms struck. The storm in Lear pushed them to leave. The storm here told them to stay. Then a calm night told them to move again. Emma heard a soft call from the captain. He pointed to the west. A faint line rose on the horizon. Land, a larger landmass. The maps showed no town there. Local fishermen said no one lived there. Emma felt new hope. The people of Lear might have reached that land. They might have built a new town far from fear. Or they might have faded slowly over time. Emma ended her notes and looked at the dark sea. The moon rose. The water shimmered. A quiet mood filled the team. No one spoke loud. The story of silence wrapped around them. They did not fear the night, but they respected it. Morning would bring the next step. Emma would sail to that land. She would search for the final mark of Lear. She wanted to know if the people lived full lives after leaving. She wanted to know if they kept their silence or found peace. The boat reached the new land by noon. The coast held long beaches and low cliffs. Grass waved in the wind. Emma looked for any sign of life. No smoke, no buildings, no boats, only sand and scattered stones. The team stepped onto the shore and set camp. Emma walked inland with two guides. The land rose slightly, then flattened. Birds flew overhead. The wind made soft noise in the grass. Still no structures. Then one guide stopped. He pointed at a line of stones half covered by earth. The stones formed a straight path. Emma brushed dirt away. The path looked cut flat by human hands. The path led toward a hill. The team followed the stones. After a short walk, they reached a mound of earth. The mound looked shaped, not natural. Emma ordered careful digging at one side. The soil came loose. Under the soil sat stacked stone blocks. The blocks formed a small chamber. Inside the chamber, the team found crates made of wood. The crates had rotted, but pieces held shape. The crates once held supplies. Someone moved these supplies here long ago. Emma found scraps of cloth and simple metal pins. The style matched Lear. So the people reached this land. They brought goods. They built storage. They planned to stay. Farther up the hill, Emma found a low wall. The wall curved in a circle. Inside the circle stood short pillars. Each pillar held a carved bird. The seer bird again. The carvings looked newer than those in Lear. The edges were sharp. Weather had not worn them much. The people lived here for some time. They carved their symbol. They held meetings. They watched the sea from the hill. Inside the circle, Emma found a stone altar. The altar had no offerings, no ash, no bones, only dust. One corner of the altar held a clay cup. The cup had a simple mark, a wing pressed lightly into wet clay. Emma lifted the cup. It weighed little. It felt like a final sign from Leah. Behind the hill, Emma saw more ruins. Houses built from wood frames and stone bases. Roofs had fallen. Walls had cracked. But the layout looked like a small town. Stone paths connected the houses. In one house, Emma found a broken spoon. In another, she found a baby stone rattle. The rattle had a tiny bird carved on the top. Mothers taught silence from birth. Children grew with the bird symbol near their hearts. Emma noted that the houses held simple tools, farming tools, nets, bowls for grinding grain. The people of Leah planted crops here. They fished in these waters. They lived quiet lives. The fear of sound did not leave them. Emma found no bells, no horns, no drums, only simple items for daily use. In the center of the new town stood a large hall. The hall had thick walls and a raised floor. The roof had fallen, but the walls still showed carvings. Emma walked inside. On one wall, the seer bird spread its wings. On another wall, a row of dots marched in order. The dots ended at a broken line. The experts guessed this line marked a break in their timeline. The people lived here for some years. Then something broke their peace. Emma found tablets in the hall. The tablets were cracked, but some words survived. One tablet said, "We left Leah after the storm. We reached the islands. We crossed the wide water. We build this place for our children." Emma felt relief. The people lived for a time. They did not die in fear. They built a new home. A second tablet gave more detail. At night, the sea spoke again. The wind shook the walls. We saw lights in the bay. We heard cries in the water. We kept silent. The silence held us. Emma read that line twice. The fear followed them. They still heard sounds in the dark. They still trusted silence. The tablet ended with a short message. The third silence comes. We must move. Emma closed her eyes. The silence came in stages. The first silence was law in Leah. The second silence came with the storm. The third silence was the end of this place. The people left again. They packed their goods. They walked away. They never stopped trusting silence. Emma walked through the ruins. She looked for signs of struggle. She saw none. She looked for signs of fire. She saw none. Like Leah, the town was not attacked. The people left in order. They took most supplies. They left small items too heavy or too old. The town looked clean. Emma followed the stone path past the hall. The path led to a cliff. The cliff had a narrow trail that dropped to a lower beach. The trail held footprints carved by ancient yews. Emma reached the lower beach and saw broken boat pieces. The boats looked larger than the one found on the islands. These boats had room for many people. They might have traveled far. Near the boats, Emma found a piece of driftwood. The wood held carved letters. The letters were simple, west. The people moved west. They followed the sea toward another land. Emma looked west. The sea stretched wide. No sign of land. The expert came to Emma with news. He found one tablet that mentioned a distant place called Saran. The tablet said, "We leave for Saran, we seek quiet. We seek peace." Saran did not show on any map. No port held that name. Emma thought about lost towns, lost names. The people of Lear might have reached Saran. They might have changed their customs. They might have lived without fear. Emma wanted to search farther, but the sea turned rough. Waves hit the boats. The wind grew sharp. The captain advised waiting. They set camp near the ruins. That night, Emma walked the silent town. She saw the altar on the hill. She saw the babies rattle on the ground. She felt the weight of history. She felt close to the families who lived here. They worked. They raised children. They held hope for peace. Emma sat near the beach. She watched dark waves hit the sand. She heard no strange cries. She saw no lights. The night stayed calm. She wondered if the fear of sound came from old myths or real events. What if the sea carried strange noises in the past? What if storms echoed through cliffs in strange ways? The people of Lear passed rules to protect themselves. Over time, the rules shaped their culture. Silence became law. The next day, the weather stayed rough. The waves slapped the shore. The wind threw sand in the air. Emma studied maps. She planned a route west. The captain said the journey would be long. Emma said they would wait for calm water. She wanted to find the final sign. She wanted to know if the people found Saran. While waiting, Emma walked inland. She found fields overgrown with grass. She saw old furrows in the soil. The people planted crops. They lived for seasons. They survived storms. She also found a small well ringed with stones. The well still held water. Emma tasted a drop. The water tasted fresh. The people chose this land with care. As the storm passed, the sea calmed. Emma spoke to the captain. They would leave in the morning. The team packed gear. They stored tablets and notes in wooden boxes. They tied crates to the boat. Emma wrote letters to her colleagues. She described the ruins and the tablets. She said the people of Lear lived longer than anyone knew. They did not vanish in one night. They walked across the sea step by step. Before sleep, Emma stood on the hilltop. The sky cleared. Stars filled the dark. The coast felt safe. She whispered a short promise. She would follow the trail west. She would find Saran if it existed. She would bring the final chapter of Lear to the world. At sunrise, the boat left a quiet shore. The water looked calm. The air felt cold. Emma watched the land shrink behind them. She thought about the baby's rattle, the carved pillars, the tablets that spoke about Saran. The people of Lear kept moving west. So Emma moved west. Hours passed. The sea stayed flat. The crew worked in silence. Some read Emma's notes. Some stared at the horizon. The captain held the wheel with steady hands. The sky held thin clouds. The boat made slow progress. Emma checked the map twice. No known ports waited ahead. No major islands. Only distant stories about a coast with white cliffs. Near midday, the lookout shouted. A thin line rose on the west side. Land. The crew rushed to the rail. The captain turned the boat toward the line. As they came closer, cliffs appeared. White stone cliffs with streaks of dark mineral. At the base of the cliffs sat a long beach. Waves washed smooth stones. Emma felt her chest rise with hope. The boat reached shallow water. The crew dropped anchor. Emma and her team rowed toward shore in a small boat. They stepped onto the stones. The cliff towered above them. No sign of structures on the beach. No signs of people. Emma led the way along the cliff base. After a short walk, they saw a faint path. The path sloped upward. The stones looked worn from many steps. Emma climbed the path. At the top of the slope, the ground leveled. Grass grew thick. Small hills rolled across the land. Far ahead stood a row of wooden posts. The posts leaned. Some had fallen. The wood had cracks from age. Emma ran her hand across one post. It held faint carvings. A bird shape. The seer bird. The team followed the posts until they reached a clearing. In the clearing, they saw low stone walls. Houses once stood here. Roofs had collapsed. Walls had fallen. The layout looked organized. Straight paths crossed the clearing. The grass hid some stones. Emma knelt and pulled grass aside. She found a coin. The seer bird sat on one side. A circle sat on the other side. The circle was new. Emma showed it to the expert. He said the circle might mark the third silence. The people reached Sarin and used the circle on coins. The symbol changed over time. In the center of the clearing stood a larger structure. Stone walls rose higher than the rest. A doorway led inside. The doorframe held two birds carved at the top. Their wings pointed inward. Emma entered with caution. Inside, the floor felt smooth. The walls held shelves. The shelves held clay tablets. Not many, but more than the last sight. Emma lifted one tablet. She brushed dust off and held it under the light. The tablet said, "We reach Saran. We build new homes. The sea stays calm. The nights stay quiet. We speak at sunrise. We whisper at sunset." Emma read it aloud. The team listened. The people reached Saran and lived for some time. Another tablet said, "Children shall learn new words. They shall honor Sia. They shall remember Leah." The people wanted to pass their story to the next generation. Emma stepped outside. She saw a stone bench near the structure. On the bench sat a broken mask. The mask looked like the ones found in the Hall of Voices. Holes for eyes, wide mouth, heavy wood. The people carried masks to Saran. They kept their customs. The experts said the masks might have been used in mourning ceremonies. The people did not play music at night, but at sunrise they played drums and horns. That part of their rules stayed. Emma moved toward a broken house near the edge of the clearing. Inside the house, she found a child's stone game. Small carved pieces shaped like birds and fish. The game looked simple. Children from Leah learned silence. Children in Saran played games at noon. Daily life moved forward. Behind the house stood a small garden. Stone borders formed neat squares. The soil still felt rich. Emma found dried roots. The team said the roots matched a wild grain that grows near wet soil. The people planted crops. They fished in the sea. They built full lives here. The fear did not stop them from working or raising families. Emma wanted to find the reason. They left Saran. The ruins looked older than the first town, but the walls held more damage. Stones lay scattered. Wood beams cracked under pressure. Some floors caved in, but the damage looked caused by time, not war. No burn marks, no weapons, only slow decay. The expert found a broken tablet near the edge of the clearing. The tablet said, "The sea speaks once more. The wind shakes the fields. We see lights in the bay. We hear the cries in the water. We keep silent. We sleep in fear." Emma felt a small chill. The same fear followed them. The silence law shaped every move. The tablet ended with one line: "The fourth silence comes. We must leave before sunrise." Emma stood still, for silences. The first silence was law. The second silence came with the storm in Leah. The third silence moved them from the second town. The fourth silence chased them from Saran. This was the last message. After this line, no tablet spoke about Saran. Emma looked toward the sea. She tried to picture that night. People woke in the dark. They moved with no sound. They packed supplies. They carried children. They left houses with locked doors. They walked down the stone path to the beach. They boarded boats and pushed off without words. They vanished into the dark water. Why did the people follow the silences? Emma held many facts, but no single answer. Fear of storms. Fear of strange cries. Fear of the sea itself. The stories passed from parent to child. The rules shaped adulthood. When signs came, the people obeyed. The people trusted silence more than stone walls. Emma checked the beach below the cliff. The team climbed down a narrow trail. At the bottom they found anchors made of stone. The anchors sat half buried in sand. 8 of them. Each anchor held a rope fragment. The ropes snapped long ago. Emma placed her hand on one anchor. It felt rough. The people tied boats here. They left before sunrise. They sailed into the west. The expert checked the last tablet again. He said the writing style changed. It looked rushed. The lines were uneven. The writer had little time. The writer feared the fourth silence. The writer told the rest to leave. Then he left the tablet on the shelf and walked away. The team found no more messages. Emma sat on a stone near the cliff. The sky turned pale. The wind lifted strands of her hair. She thought about the weight of silence. She thought about the first night in Leah, the second storm, the move to the islands, the journey to Saran. The people lived through many seasons. They held hope. Each time the sea shook their world, they moved again. Emma wanted to search farther west, but no map showed land beyond Saran. The sea stretched without end. The crew worried about fuel and supplies. The captain shook his head. He said no boat sailed past this point in years. The waters past Saran stayed rough. The wind pulled from strange angles. Many sailors stayed away. Emma chose a new plan. She would gather all tablets and coins. She would map each site. She would return to her office and study old ship logs. She would search for any note about boats from unknown lands. She would speak to sailors from distant ports. She would search every archive for the name Saran or the sea bird. Before leaving, Emma walked to the largest structure once more. She placed the broken mask on the stone bench. She touched the wall. She said a short promise. She would tell their story. The empire of Leah did not vanish in one night. It walked across the sea in silence. It left marks for anyone who cared to listen. Emma and her team packed the tablets and coins. They walked the path back to the beach. They rowed to the main boat. The boat lifted anchor and turned east. The ruins of Saran grew small behind them. The cliffs turned thin. The land faded into the horizon. Emma stood on deck as the sea carried them home. She did not know if the people of Lear found peace. She hoped they did. She hoped silence stopped chasing them. The boat crossed the sea for many days. The crew stayed calm. Emma's team wrote notes. They sorted tablets. They counted coins. They marked each item with the symbol of the seabird. Every crate held pieces of a forgotten history. Every crate told the same message. Silence shaped an empire. Silence moved families across the sea like shadows. When the boat reached the mainland, Emma stepped onto a busy port. Markets filled the docks. Merchants shouted prices. Sailors laughed. Children ran near crates. The noise felt strange after weeks of calm water and silent ruins. Emma stopped for a moment and watched the crowd. Voices bounced off stone walls. The sea wind mixed with spice, fish, and smoke. It felt different from Lear. It felt alive. Emma hired carts to bring crates to her office. The office sat in a quiet part of the city, a small building with old wooden doors. Inside, shelves waited for history. Emma and her team placed tablets on tables. They cleaned each one. They made careful copies of the writing. They compared symbols between sites. They formed a timeline of the 4 silences. The work took long hours. Emma visited a museum curator. She placed the seabird coin on a desk. The curator leaned close. He examined the bird's wings and sharp neck. He checked metal traces. He asked about the tablets. Emma told the entire story from Lear to Saran. The curator raised his eyebrows. He said no record of this empire existed. No scholar wrote the name Lear in any guide. Emma said that would change now. The museum offered to help translate faint writing. They brought an expert in clay tablets. He studied marks on the Saran tablet. He said the final lines spoke about a promise. The promise said the seabird watched them, but the sea tested them. If they stayed silent, they lived. If they broke the silence, something took them. The expert did not claim truth. He only read the message. Emma thanked him. Emma searched old ship logs in the museum archives. She found one log from a sailor in the year 1040. The log spoke about strange lights over the bay of a far coast. The sailor said he heard cries in the night. He thought the cries belonged to birds or whales, but the sound felt wrong. The log never mentioned Lear or Saran. Still, Emma marked this note. It matched stories from the tablets. Emma also visited a scholar who studied storms and coastlines. The scholar said violent storms once struck that region. The storms tore ships apart. The storms sent strange noise through cliffs. The wind echoed inside rock and sounded like voices. Emma listened. The story of the sea cries might be natural. The people of Lear heard storms and shaped fear into law. Silence grew from that fear. The scholar pointed at a map. He drew a circle around the coast of Lear and the islands. He said rare storms hit that area every few decades. The people of Lear might have seen storms as signs. When the 4th silence came, they left Saran before the next storm reached them. Emma wrote this down. Natural fear became culture and rule. Emma wanted more clues from harbour cities. She travelled to a nearby port known for old sailors and old stories. She walked the docks and spoke to fishermen. Some shook their heads. Some told tales of lost ships. One old fisherman remembered a story his father told. The story spoke about silent boats that moved at night without lanterns. The fisherman said the boats came once every few generations. The fishermen saw shapes in the dark. No voices, no signals, only shadows. Emma asked if the boats came from the west. The fisherman nodded. Emma's pulse quickened. She asked the fisherman if anyone saw where the boats landed. He said the boats moved along the coast. The shadows left no trace. When dawn came, no boats remained. The fisherman's father never saw the boats again. Emma thanked him. The story felt thin, but it matched the silent rule of Leah. Emma returned to her office. She stared at the map. The people left Leah, reached the islands, settled twice, then left again. The fourth silence chased them from Saran. The boats moved west, but no land sat west on known charts, unless the boats did not reach land, unless the people stayed on the water. Emma thought about floating towns. Some cultures lived on boats for seasons. They fished, they traded, they raised children on decks. They moved with storms. The people of Leah might have lived on boats after leaving Saran. They might have traveled until the end of their supplies. They might have lived quiet lives on waves. If no land waited, silence became their final home. Emma searched logs for any record of boats with no flags. She found a letter from a sailor in the year 1045. The letter said his crew passed a line of empty boats drifting in calm water. No sails, no ropes, only silent hulls. The sailor worried that pirates killed the crews, but the boats held no bodies. The letter gave no answer, only fear. Emma marked this clue. Silent boats drifting. Could those boats be from Leah? Another sailor wrote a short note about a chant heard at sunrise from far across the sea. The chant faded fast. No ship appeared. The sailor said he dreamed the sound. Emma read the note twice. It reminded her of the Hall of Voices. Morning drums, morning chants, silence at night. The pattern lived across oceans. Emma arranged a meeting with the museum board. She wanted support for a full study. She wanted funds to scan each tablet and coin. She wanted to publish findings. She stood before the board and told the story of Leah. She showed photos of ruins. She showed maps of travel from the coast to Saran. She explained the culture of silence and the four silences. The board listened with interest. They agreed to support her work. The empire of Leah would become known to scholars. The museum would build a display. Emma walked home under street lamps. The night felt soft. She thought about the people of Leah who feared sound after dark. She heard footsteps and voices around her. She felt safe. She wondered if the silence rule came from old myths or something real. She did not know. She only knew the people of Leah lived and moved across the sea. The next morning, Emma wrote a long report for the museum. She wrote about the first silence at night in Leah. She wrote about the second silence after the storm. She wrote about the third silence at the second town. She wrote about the fourth silence at Saran. She wrote about the tablets that warned of strange cries in the bay. She wrote about the stone anchors on the beach. She wrote about the carved bird on coins and walls. She ended the report with a question. Where did the people of Leah go after Saran? The answer stayed hidden. Emma invited scholars to share any logs of silent ships or drifting boats. She asked sailors to report strange lights at sea. She hoped new clues surfaced. Emma closed her office and sat by the window. She watched the street. She imagined silent boats moving across calm water. She imagined children of Leah learning new words under sunrise. She imagined parents holding babies and pointing at stars. Silence did not stop love or growth. Silence shaped culture. Silence shaped survival. The empire did not fall. It walked away. It left doors unlocked. It left bowls on tables. It left anchors in sand. It left a trace in the wind. Emma felt honored to find that trace. Weeks passed. Emma worked day and night. The museum placed the seabird coin in a glass case. Visitors paused and stared. They asked about the missing empire. They asked why no one knew about Leah. They asked why the people left in silence. Emma answered with care. She told them about the tablets. She told them about the hall of voices. She told them the empire moved, not died. Emma started a book. She wrote every fact in simple order. Leah on the coast, the second town on the islands, Saran beyond the white cliffs, boats tied to stone anchors, the four silences, the promise of the seabird. She wrote about storms and strange sounds. She wrote about masks and silent nights. The book grew fast. Each page held new life for a lost culture. One afternoon, a librarian called Emma. The librarian found an old travelogue from a sailor who crossed the same waters near Saran. The log was short, but one part stood out. The sailor spoke about seeing lights far at sea. Not lantern lights, green lights. The lights moved slow near the water surface. The sailor thought they were sea creatures. But the log said the lights moved in straight lines, like a line of boats. The sailor followed for a short time. Then the lights vanished. Emma read the log 3 times. The date matched years after Saran. She shared the log with the expert. The expert said the green lights might have come from algae stirred by boats, or it might be something else. Emma nodded. The theory felt thin, but it was the best clue so far. Emma met a historian who studied forgotten ports. He told her about a coastal town to the far north. The town had legends about silent visitors. The legends said boats arrived at dawn. The visitors traded fish and grain. The visitors did not speak. They left before night. The legend said the visitors carried masks with large eyes and open mouths. Emma felt her heart lift. Large eyes, open mouths, masks like those from Leah. Emma and the historian studied maps. The coastal town sat far from Saran, but a strong boat could travel there. The line between Saran and the northern coast passed deep waters. The historian said storms hit that region often. Some boats survived, some did not. The people of Leah might have reached that coast in small numbers. They might have tried to trade. Then they moved again. Emma wrote letters to the town's record keepers. She asked for any relics, any tablets, any coins. A week passed. A month passed. Then one letter arrived. The keeper said they found a broken carving in an attic of a long abandoned house. The carving showed a bird with wings open. Emma asked for a picture. The carving looked close to the seabird. The keeper said the carving came from a wood chest. The chest held nothing else. Emma wrote back and asked permission to visit. She traveled north by train. The ride took days. The wind grew cold. The air carried salt from stormy seas. The town greeted her with quiet streets and grey houses. The record keeper met her near the old hall. He held a small sack. Inside the sack sat the carving. Emma lifted it. The wood felt old and dry. The bird shape looked clear, though one wing had chipped. She thanked the keeper. The keeper took her to a small museum. Inside, on a dusty shelf, sat a stone bowl. The bowl held a faint mark of the seer bird. Under the bowl rested a stone weight used for nets. The weight matched those found on the islands. Emma felt sure. People from Leah reached this town. They traded. They left bowls and weights. They left signs for the future. The keeper told a story passed by elders. The story said silent visitors left the coast one winter night. The next morning, fishermen found marks in the sand, boat tracks, deep cuts from heavy holes. The people never returned. The stories said the visitors feared storms. When the sea roared, they left. Emma listened. The legend matched the pattern. Silence at night, drums at sunrise, fear of storms, move west when danger came. Emma stood near the shore. Waves hid dark rocks. The wind shook her coat. She thought about the path of Leah, from the first town to Saran, from Saran to this northern coast. The trail ran long, but it did not end. The people kept moving. They might have reached other ports. They might have traded and left without record. Emma returned to her office. She placed the carving next to the tablets. The carving added weight to the story. The timeline stretched. The empire did not fade in one night. It lived in silence for decades after leaving the first town. Emma visited the museum display. A small crowd gathered. People read signs about Leah. They saw a replica of the Hall of Voices. They saw pictures of the stone circle on the islands. Some asked if the story ended at Saron. Emma said no. The people moved farther. She said evidence pointed north. She told them about the carving found in the attic and the bowl from the dusty shelf. A child asked if anyone from Leah was still alive. Emma smiled. Too much time had passed. The last move likely happened nearly 1,000 years ago. But the child asked a second question. Did the people ever feel safe? Emma paused. She said the people farmed. They raised children. They built houses. They traded. They slept. They lived. So yes, they felt safe at times. Even if fear followed them, life pushed forward. Emma continued to research sailors' letters. She found one more note about strange sounds at sea. The sailor described a chant that lasted seconds, then silence. He said the sound came at sunrise. That matched the pattern. Sunrise chants, silence at night. The pattern lived across coasts. Emma shared her work with universities. Scholars asked to see the tablets. Some doubted the four silences. Some doubted the fear story. Emma said the tablets told the facts. The ruins supported the facts. She wanted more proof, not more doubt. She invited scholars to visit the sites. She hoped they would see the truth. One night, Emma sat in her office with maps on the floor. She drew lines across oceans and coasts. She marked every clue. She outlined the journey. She wanted to write a final chapter in her book, but the end remained open. She did not know where the people of Leah found rest. Emma wrote one line at the end. Of her notes, the empire walked into the sea and left a trail of silence. She placed her pencil down. She closed her eyes. She thought of Saran, the islands, the Hall of Voices, the broken masks. She felt tired and calm. She looked out the window. Street lamps glowed. Cars passed. People talked. The city lived with sound. Silence did not rule here. She wondered if someone from Leah would feel peace in this world of noise, or if they would fear every shout. Emma returned to her desk. She wrote a letter to a sailor in the far north. She asked if he heard chants in the morning. She asked if he saw lights at sea. She asked if silent boats ever passed his port. She hoped for an answer. Spring came. The museum set a full exhibit on Leah. Visitors lined the hall. Children pressed faces to glass. Elders read tablet translations. Coin replicas sold at the front desk. The story spread across town. Other cities heard of the silent empire and asked for copies of tablets. Emma and her team kept working. One evening, Emma received a letter from the far north. The sailor answered her questions. He wrote about strange mornings at sea. He heard short chants carried by wind. He never saw boats. The chants lasted seconds. Then the sea fell silent again. He thought he dreamed it, but he heard it more than once. Emma folded the letter and placed it in her binder. The pattern lived on. Emma also received a letter from an island trader. The trader wrote about finding a worn mask in an old fishing shack. The mask looked like those used in Leah, a wide mouth, large eye holes. The trader used the mask to scare gulls. Emma sent money and asked for the mask. Days later, the mask arrived. Emma held it with both hands. The wood looked thin. The shape matched perfectly. The people of Leah carried masks across seas and left them behind. When they moved again, Emma made a chart that showed how far these items spread. From the coast of Leah to the islands. From the islands to Saran. From Saran to the northern coast. From the northern coast to fishing shacks. The chart proved the empire moved slowly across oceans. The chart showed the memory of the empire survived in objects. Emma met with a language expert. The tablets used a simple script. The expert believed some words came from older coastal groups. The word seer might have meant bird or silence. The script mixed old and new markings. The expert said the scrolls from the palace showed clear order. The tablets from Saran showed rushed writing. The people wrote fast in fear. Then they left. Emma wanted to check one more site. She heard from a sailor who claimed he saw ruins on a small rock far west of Saran. The sailor could not land. The waves hit the rock with force. But he saw stones shaped like walls. He saw a broken mast. He saw a carved bird. Emma asked the museum for funds to send a small team. The museum approved. The team rented a sturdy boat. They loaded tools. They sailed west again. The water grew rough near the rock. Waves hit the hull hard. The boat rocked. The captain frowned. He said approaching the rock would be dangerous. Emma asked to circle the rock at a safe distance. They moved close enough to see the dark shape. The rock rose from the sea like a crooked tooth. Broken walls sat on top. A half-mast leaned over the edge. The carved bird could not be seen from this distance, but the shape of the walls looked like Leah. Emma stared through binoculars. She saw stones placed in neat order. She saw a small opening that might lead to a chamber. The rock looked too small for a town, but maybe it held a shelter. Maybe people from Leah stopped here in a storm. Maybe some stayed and built a shrine. The captain said he could not land without risking lives. Emma agreed. She marked the rock's position. She would record this sight as well. On the way back, the sea calmed. The crew talked in low voices. They spoke about children of Lear who grew up on boats. They spoke about parents teaching silence as a rule. They wondered if fear kept the people moving. They wondered if the people found peace after centuries of travel. Back on land, Emma updated her book. She added the rock site. She wrote about the driftwood letter. She wrote about the carving in the attic. She wrote about the museum display. The book reached 300 pages. She planned to publish soon. One night, Emma had a small gathering with her team. They sat in her office. Lamps glowed. Maps covered the walls. Tablets lay on shelves. The team talked about every clue. A researcher said the fourth silence might not be the end. There might be a fifth or sixth. The people might have moved again. The empire might have changed names. They might have blended with other cultures. Emma listened. She nodded. The trail might never end. The empire might live in unknown places. But she wanted a clear ending for her book. She wanted a soft line that guided readers to calm. She did not want a sharp end. Emma looked at the Hall of Voices sketches. She saw the drums lined in a circle. She saw the two stone heads staring at the sea. She thought about sunrise chants. The chants gave strength. The silence gave safety. The pattern shaped each day. A researcher asked Emma if she believed the strange cries were real. Emma said storms produce strange sounds. Wind echoes through cliffs. Waves slam caves and whistle. People hear voices in the dark. Fear grows. Stories spread. Rules form. Children learn to whisper. Silence wins. The researcher asked if Emma believed the people left because of fear. Emma said fear shapes decisions. The people of Lear built a life around silence. When storms rose, they left. When waves shook walls, they moved. They wanted safety for children. They trusted silence and the sea-bird. Emma returned home late. She sat near the window again. The street held noise. She heard music, calls, laughter. She felt tired and peaceful. The story of Lear filled her thoughts. She pictured the first town under moonlight. She pictured soldiers walking the streets at night with soft steps. She pictured the tunnel under the cliffs. She pictured boats sliding into dark water. She pictured mothers holding babies close. Emma closed her eyes. She saw the second town on the islands, the stone circle, the cave with jars, the broken boat on the shore. She saw Saran under the white cliffs. She saw children playing games in the sun. She saw tablets marked with short messages. She saw stone anchors in sand. She saw a line of boats leaving before dawn. Emma opened her eyes. She heard a soft hum from the street. She smiled. Life never stayed silent. The story of Lear would not stay silent now. It would spread from museum halls to books to classrooms. Children would learn about the lost empire. They would speak the name Lear out loud. Emma finished her book. The title read, The Empire of Silence. The museum planned a small event. Scholars and visitors waited in a quiet hall. Emma stood near the display of sea-bird coins. She felt nervous. She wanted people to honor the story. She wanted them to feel the weight of each tablet and each mask. When the event started, the curator introduced Emma. She stepped to the front. She spoke slowly. She said the empire of Lear did not fall in war. It did not starve. It did not fade in smoke. It walked away from storms. It walked across seas. It trusted silence. Emma told the story from Lear to Saran. She told how the people left traces in ruins, carvings, and tablets. She ended with the rock far west of Saran. She said the trail did not end. She said signs might still wait in waves or sand. The room stayed quiet. Then people asked questions. They asked if the strange cries were wails. Emma said storms and waves might explain the sounds. They asked if any descendants of Lear lived today. Emma said it was unknown. Thousands of years passed. Cultures changed. But some legends spoke about silent visitors. Some coastal groups still tell children to stay quiet after dark. After the event ended, Emma signed books. People thanked her. A mother told her that her child asked about Lear every night. A teacher said she wanted to add Lear to her lessons. Emma felt warm. The empire would not be forgotten again. That night, Emma walked home under the moon. She passed a park and sat on a bench. She thought about the people who lived long ago. She pictured them lighting small lamps and holding children close in quiet rooms. She pictured morning chants near the Hall of Voices. She pictured workers carving birds into stone. She pictured the last night in Saran, when families packed in silence. Emma stood and walked toward the harbor. She liked the smell of salt and the sound of waves. She reached the edge and watched boats move in the bay. Lights flickered on decks. Voices carried over water. She stayed for a moment. She closed her eyes and listened. The next week, Emma traveled to a university where students wanted to learn about Lear. She brought a small tablet and a carved bird. She spoke to a full room. The students asked why silence shaped an empire. Emma said fear grows fast, but so does love. The people protected each other. They kept moving in search of peace. After the lecture, a young student gave Emma a note. The student wrote that when storms hit her town, people stayed inside and turned lights off. They listened to the wind and waited. The student said fear teaches survival. Emma smiled and thanked her. Emma continued to research small clues from sailors and traders. She kept an open book on her desk. She left the last chapter unwritten. She did not want to lock the story. She wanted room for new pages. She believed some answer waited out there. An old tablet in a cave. A moth-eaten mask in a seaside attic. A coin in an old fisherman's pocket. The trail of Lear might appear again. On a clear morning, Emma walked to a quiet cliff near her city. The wind touched her face. The sea stretched wide. She imagined a boat moving across calm water. Silent crew, children sleeping, mothers watching stars, fathers holding ropes, the sea bird carved on wood, the boat drifting toward dawn. Emma whispered a small line. She said the empire lived in every silent step taken for safety and hope. She said the empire lived in every parent who watched the sea and listened. She said the empire lived in each object left behind. The empire lived in history now. Emma reached for her bag and pulled out the first coin found in the ruins. The sea-bird's wings spread wide. She held the coin tight. She looked at the horizon. She stood still. The wind made soft noise in her coat. The sea breathed in and out. Years later, Emma's book sat in libraries and homes. Children read about Lear before bed. Teachers talked about the Hall of Voices. Scholars planned trips to Saran. The museum displayed the tablets with care. Visitors stood in silence and listened for lost chants. Emma grew older, but her office stayed full. She kept maps on the walls. She kept a box of letters from sailors. She kept the sea coin close. When storms hit, she remembered the tablets. She listened to the wind. She felt peace. One evening, Emma sat on her porch. The sun fell low. A soft breeze moved through trees. She closed her eyes. She thought about her promise. She brought the memory of Leah to the world. She kept that promise. She opened her eyes. She smiled. She whispered a final line. The empire did not vanish overnight. The empire survived in silence. The empire lives when someone remembers. The wind died. The light faded. The night held calm. You heard a full story about a forgotten empire. You heard every step from coast to coast. You learned the truth. The empire did not end. It walked away and left a trail for you. Thank you for watching. The next video shares another lost story from old maps. You also get a small free booklet of ancient symbols from coastal towns. Rest now. Your eyes stay heavy. Your mind stays calm. Sora image prompts. Lonely cliff at sunrise, with Emma holding the Sea Coin Museum display of tablets and masks under warm lights. Silent bay with distant boats under moonlight.